Kbot and Pro Chara. How are you all doing today? Fern, we'll start with you.
I'm doing great. It is too hot outside for video games.
Yeah, it's
too
way
hot
too
for
warm.
video games. Aren't you supposed to stay inside to dodge the heat?
You know,
yeah,
he's got you
you
there.
kind
He's
of
got you
think
there,
that
Fern.
would be the point.
I would think that.
Cool. Yeah, so it is way too hot. I agree. I am like, my hair is drooping down. It is gross in here. Kbot, how are you doing?
Hi, Hammy. I'm doing okay. I just got off work and came home, and then about a second before we pressed the go live button, I joined the call. So all good. No, I'm doing all right. Today was a fine day. I'm taking tomorrow off, so I get an even long weekend. Happy 4th for the folks in the States, USA. Yeah, so we're doing all right.
Fashionably late. Love to see it. Also, yeah, on topic of July the 4th, also happy belated Canada Day to all you Canadians in chat, aka
True.
me. I'm probably the only one here. And yeah, Chara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I don't have as much going on as anyone else here, I think, but I'm ready to talk some Splatoon.
I mean, aren't you going to Gommel in like a day or two? Like you got some
Yeah,
stuff going on.
I leave Friday morning, so I am that.
Okay, so still got a bit. Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow morning, so I'm a bit more frantic right now. So the main topic for today, and the reason we've all dragged you here into Splat Chat, is mostly to talk about SuperJump 5, kind of recap how the event went, the first big qualifier for the Splat World Series coming up in August, because a lot of stories were developed here, which sucks because I couldn't watch it live. I was too busy, and I looked back and went, oh my god. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about here. So I do want to kind of dive into it and not drag things along. So I think the most appropriate place to start, we should probably look at the previous predictions that the last group of chatters on episode 5 would have given us about the event. So I don't know if our lovely production can bring up the previous predictions from Splat Chat 5, and we can kind of talk about how we think they did.
Are they available?
Oh,
maybe they are.
Maybe.
The
classic loading screen. Will it load? I guess in the meantime, not to put too much pressure on CKK as we're loading this up. Right
on the spot, production man.
Any immediate reactions to SuperJump 5 from any of you? Just immediate, like something that sticks out to you that you just have to get off your chest, just right off the base from the event.
I feel like outside of Vanguard, I didn't really have too many surprises. I figured a lot of teams would be a little more experimental with their comps, and that plus all modes would probably lead to less consistency. So I expected, like going into it, that some teams would be a little higher or lower than expected. Like Vanguard was the only one where I was like, oh, or like at least from like the top 8 or so, that I was like, oh, they played like way better than I thought they would play. And then if I'm like expanding outside of like the top 8 teams, then Free Flow as well is probably the biggest story of the event as well, I think.
Yeah,
which I unfortunately completely missed.
Yeah, right. Also completely missed. But I think like the largest thing, like to Chara's point, is that with the 10.0 being released 2.5 weeks prior to this tournament, there was not enough time for anybody to come together with like here's what the meta is actually going to be. I think we're just now starting to see what the actual defined meta is going to look like, longer term. But it was like just outside that like shock react of, oh, this Rattler mini is going to be really strong, but not quite all the way to we know exactly what the meta is going to be. And so the event kind of landed right in that uncertain spot. So I think like some teams tried to buy into whatever they thought the meta was going to be, and kind of said, we're going to try to play that. Other teams like us for Hypernova, we just said, we're going to run what we usually run and call it a day. And I think that was probably one of the reasons why we were more successful in this tournament than maybe some people had on their minds. Also, on the topic of the actual predictions, I was shocked to see that most of the people here last week predicted Milk Duds. I think PXG was the pretty clear favorite heading into it. So I was surprised every time that I saw Milk Duds probably take number one on someone's predictions list, or like one or two seeders even behind the scenes had Milk Duds 1 or 2. I was like, come on now, really? We can't be doing this.
Yeah, I think Ray at some point posted his like results page on S-Blast being undefeated. I feel like people just haven't gotten the memo, but like the typical Gray U Jordan group has been the best group in the scene for like almost half a year now.
Yeah, I think the Milk Duds picks was definitely it was copium for sure. I am
North American copium, just the way I like it.
French people are better at video games. Like, I'm just gonna like that is consistent in every esport that I watch. It always happens. But yeah, of course, to nobody's surprise, PXG taking the event overall. So the 3 copium picks for Milk Duds not following through. They did come second, which isn't too big of an upset. I would also kind of like to look at the actual like their top 8 and kind of see how that compares to the actual placements. CKK, if we can get that back up, thank you very much, appreciate it. Yes, so first place PXG, that was correct, and same with Milk Duds in second. Third place actually went to Vanguard, who they placed in 6th. So that was a huge performance from them. Hypernova coming 4th instead of 5th. That one was pretty close. 6th place, and then 5th and 6th tie was Aura and Free Flow. Again, Free Flow with that huge placement coming in 5th. That is, as mentioned, one of the biggest stories of SuperJump 5 for sure. Moonlight coming in 7th, not as high as they were placed in 4th, and also tied for 7th/8th place is 556. So honestly, not a terrible top 8 despite the copium picks for Milk Duds in the overall prediction from our previous chatters.
When you did the top 8, it looks relatively accurate, and at least certainly based on expectations heading into the event. The way that the event played, however, because we're playing double elim at the end of it, and because Vanguard dropped the ball on day 1, getting a 2nd seed and playing Moonlight round 1, all of Vanguard, Moonlight, and Aura were on the same side of the losers bracket. And so just by existence, only one of them can place 3rd or 4th, one of them can place 5th, and one of them can place 7th. So if you're trying to like pin down this like, oh, well, you didn't quite hit Moonlight on the spot or whatever, right? Well, it's also because all like 3 incredibly strong teams that we expected to be right next to each other end up on the same side of the bracket, which means that they can only show up every 2 spots when you go down the list in a top 8. So I think that's the largest thing. Also, by that same side of the token, I think like Free Flow is obviously the team that everyone wants to talk about that got 5th, but they played well. I'm not going to discredit that at all, right? I think this is a team that some people have had on their radars, certainly, and haven't seen them necessarily perform at the highest level. So it was nice to see them, take a couple of sets. But the only team they beat that was like maybe top 8 in anyone's mind was this STL team that signed up last minute, which in hindsight, we should have expected some, combination of these players to sign up. But that was really the only like major upset I think that they would have taken. The rest of where Free Flow's matches ended up were probably pretty consistent with what most people might expect. I guess like people who've been paying attention for longer, beyond the past month, because I only started paying attention since MomoCon. So maybe you all can chime in on this one, because Free Flow, great, they placed 5th, but they also like didn't really knock off anyone that was exceptional, to like really make a statement.
Yeah, that's I can see that angle too, because it kind of goes back to the whole result culture thing that the Splatoon scene likes to fall into a lot, where it's oh, look at my placement, don't look at my games. And that's true, where they have to beat some of these top teams to really be recognized as, you know, like one of the best. And I think the important thing to look at is that Free Flow has been on that grind, because as you said, K-Bot, you've, you know, only really been paying attention since MomoCon, and Free Flow has been around for a while. I've been viewing their progress over time. They're a team that I know about because there's a lot of recognizable players in some of the spheres that I'm in. And while I don't know any of them personally, I have seen them improving a lot. So this is definitely the next step forward. And I'm not going to say Free Flow is amazing now. Like they're so great, they're so good at the game because of this one result. But this is like, oh, they have the potential. This is
Absolutely
showings of a bright future for the team for sure. Now, there's so much with SuperJump to talk about. Like I've said, like there are a bunch of little hidden details. Fern, I know you're our stats guy. You love digging in and crunching these numbers. What are some of the notable details for SuperJump 5 in terms of like the stats? They pop out to you immediately.
So, I mean, I'm not exactly I have a lot more storylines than number stuff wise. I think like some some stuff some stuff I was surprised by is I think Aura. I kind of expected them to do better, and I mean I know they had to come up against Vanguard, and like the bracket was not the best, but they I think them getting upset by Hypernova, which was kind of Hypernova's upset, like they had an easy set win and then just 2 losses after that, was definitely not what I was expecting. I looked at this Edu and I was like, auras and losers, and I was like, oh my god. But I like personally, I think they'd been. I mean, Volti has only played like 4 tournaments, had only played like 3 or 4 tournaments prior. In 2025, I think they were coming back from, like, as a group, they'd only played 3 tournaments total prior to like 2 days before the event. And like Silver in CenQ finale was losing to everyone on Canon, but it was on Canon. So like, I don't know. I kind of did not expect them, but at the same time, it's a Zenith Yoshio core team with Volti and Silver, and so I kind of expected them to do better. The free flow, the free flow run was very interesting. I think, yeah, like in terms of the upsets, I think STL. The thing I would say there is that Free Flow is a team and like group that is grinding like a lot. Like these players have been playing together, like continuing to move up for a really long time. And just on STL, like I know Thunder's been playing the game a lot recently, but like Wave isn't grinding very much. Fantar isn't grinding very much. I don't know if I've seen Dark play a lot recently. So it's certainly like a new NA prodigies versus old NA prodigies type thing. But yeah, that is it's an upset, but it's also not like the least expected upset of all time. But yeah, their run in particular was good. I mean, even I know it's like the sets aren't great, but they are still 5th to 6th in a super jump, which is a really, really impressive thing for any like upcoming high to top level team. I mean, I didn't even profile them because I didn't think they would make top 8, or like I thought they would, and then I thought they would lose. So it is like I thought about it, but I was like, no, it's not going to be worth the time. But apparently it would have been worth the time, and Black Lotus would not have been. So that is another thing. I do want to bring up Black Lotus. They did win beta, but of course they were in beta in the first place. And I know they haven't been playing together very long. The 2 teams they lost to in groups, they lost to Heavy Metal, and then what was the other team? Artifice, and I'm biased
Artifice,
because I have a friend on Artifice, but I do think it is very fun that like two of the like stacked mechanical mid to high level teams in Heavy Metal and Artifice were both able to beat like former almost like best team in the West contender Black Lotus. Like I thought that was a very cool like arc for them. I mean, obviously it wasn't great for Black Lotus, but
Yeah, it
not as great of an arc for the team that lost that one, I think.
I think I do like to see that though, because as much as I don't want to see Black Lotus lose and drop into beta bracket, I think that this can be an opportunity for, you know, some of these old guard players to go, okay, no, we're better than this, and get back on that grind. And then, like you said, for some of these other teams like Artifice and like a lot of these other players who are able to get to alpha bracket off of those upsets, to use that momentum, similar to what we talked about with free flow, just be able to, you know, take that and run with it and use that as a sign of like, we are moving in the right direction. How can we keep improving? Because there's always going to be those extra steps to take, because you can beat Black Lotus once, sure, but can you beat them multiple times? Can you beat other top teams? Like, when are you going to beat FT Win? When can you beat PXG? You know, there's always a bigger fish. So I'd love to see some more performance in these teams, and, you know, kind of see some of these other teams that may not be performing as well kind of kick themselves in the butt and get back into gear. So hopefully some exciting stuff for the future.
Okay, so I just went back to look at the beta bracket. I happened to pull it up because I was like, now I was curious, and I had it open. The Black Lotus beta run, 3-1 versus Zipcat, 3-2 versus Baked Goodies, 3-1 versus Blanks, 3-1 versus Magnolia, 3-1 versus Blanks. They did not win a single set in beta bracket. Complete 3-0, like absolute stomp. I think that's probably a symptom. Chara, like, again, I've only been paying attention to the past month, so maybe Chara knows more. I'm gonna guess that this is just a team that hasn't really played much at all, and like was dusting off and de-rusting on a new 10.0 patch, and just like played whatever weapons that they thought, and like maybe they thought they would be okay, and they clearly weren't like top 16 level for this event.
Yeah.
What, Black Lotus?
Yeah.
I saw that day one, to be fair to them, they didn't have Anger playing as far as I know, which meant they didn't have their usual 10 comp, and I do feel like Anger is very much the centerpiece of their team. But at the same time, Black Lotus has also been underperforming in a lot of consecutive events, which is why to me it like didn't. I expected top 16 for sure, but it also didn't surprise me too much there. I felt like the combination of those two factors has been a bit tough for them. I think that they've had a hard time really figuring out what their identity as a team has been since a few months now, and they probably need to do some, you know, I feel like it's a common mistake a lot of top teams can make, in which they're just kind of they don't really have a set goal with their comp. They don't recognize the play style that makes them play best. And I feel like Black Lotus for a while has shifted further and further away from what made them do really well back when they had that one Sendu run. Obviously they had Momo instead, but like I feel like they should still be able to have a comparable performance, but they haven't been. Again, it's the same thing really. It's just I felt like the comp changes that they've done and the playstyle changes that they've done have strayed further away from what their team is best at doing. And until they recognize that, I think that this is going to continue to be a problem for them in trying to get back to having good results again.
If we have time later, I'd love to circle back around to that kind of idea, because I have long said that the identity of a team is perhaps more important than the precise weapons that they're playing. And I think I have more explaining to do on that. I'm sure we'll get back to that.
I mean, I think we'll cycle back to that both with Hypernova, but also when we talk about Moonlight's run later.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say,
about that.
I would love to delve into it now, but yes, we could kind of get through the last couple things about SuperJump, and then yes, K-Bot as the coach of Hypernova and Char as the coach of Moonlight, we can delve deep into the get like a behind the scenes view on those teams, just because you guys will have a lot more information, and especially with both of those teams having notable events occurring during SuperJump, we can kind of end off the tournament with that. So before we get to that, something that I kind of wanted to bring up is so a lot of the talks right now is, any pickup with Gray, with you, with Soldier, like, the PXG group or snails or whatever you want to call them, they keep winning stuff. They keep winning everything. Gray posts on a Blue Sky that they have not lost Gray specifically as a player has not lost a tournament in 2025 on S-Blast. And they've only lost one tournament where they came in second and they were playing a different weapon. And so there's a lot of dominance coming from this squad. And for me, it begs the question of two things. One, should they just make a team, find a consistent fourth and try to just dominate the West? And two, what would happen if Gray, you, and Soldier didn't play together? Is one of those players the star, or are all three of them together working as a group? So I was wondering if any of you had any insights on this group of three players, and just if the reason they're playing together is why they're successful, if they should find a consistent fourth, and if you guys have any opinions on that, what seems to be the top team essentially in the West.
Yeah, I can give you some quick numbers on this. So Gray, okay. So Gray and Jordan have both won their last 12 tournaments. Gray hasn't missed a Grands in 8 months. He hasn't missed a podium in 13 months. He hasn't missed a top 4 in 16 months, and he hasn't missed a top 8 since July 2023. And Jordan has a Sendu.inc, tournaments on Sendu.inc era win rate of 92.3%. And I mean, I kind of think that it is, my hot take was always that if Sunny Day, which was Zenith, Yoshell, Atomic, Gray, had become a team after, a real team after Jackpot imploded, they would have been the next Jackpot. I think they were by far better than everyone else. I don't think that was just a Gray thing, but it was definitely kind of a Gray thing. And at this point, I think if you put you and Gray in a tournament, it's kind of hard to say that anybody else is going to win it. I don't really think Jordan is making or breaking the Gray teams. I mean, he's certainly really, really, really good, but it's also, I think Jordan hasn't really played much without Gray or you and those people, so it's kind of hard to tell if he wasn't playing on these teams, would he be winning or not? I think he kind of would be, but it is these, I mean, they're obviously some of the best teams in the West. I kind of don't think they'll make a team because it seems like they just don't do that. But if they did, I think they would beat everyone.
I would go as far as to say they are basically already some kind of a team, even if it's a rotating cast of characters, right? I think they enter enough tournaments as some kind of conglomerate that we don't know what to call them, but they might as well be some kind of team. Plus, they have to enter as SWS together still, basically. Yes. Maybe they'll be one substitution in or out. So they'll, this roster in essence should probably stick around for at least a bit. And I think as a result, it's hard to say one particular player is going to do it. I mean, I think when you take someone that has the experience of Gray, who, might I remind you, has been doing the Splatoon thing as long as I have, just obviously at the highest level of the game, rather than, yapping. He'll have the experience to be able to guide mechanically talented players, such as Soldier, such as you. Throw in Noah, right? Throw in Goss, throw in whoever you want to be able to pull together some type of idea that they can play around, and understand what the win condition is. And I think there's probably an ounce of that leadership and quarterbacking skill that you don't get to observe in the game that might theoretically be the most important thing. But I think when you're looking at the games themselves in terms of the players' abilities, I think any one of those players can easily be an MVP for any given tournament consistently. Goss hasn't played with this roster as much, right? So I don't think he really is the glue that holds the team together by any means. But I think certainly you can make the argument for the rest of the three of them.
Yeah. I just want to butt in because you're saying something about the Gray bringing on these mechanically talented players, and one of the insights I had from the stats is that you obviously won the tournament, but was only 7th in points per special per 5 minutes, and like pretty like below backlines that did not win the tournament. And also Q was very relatively low for placing second. And my sort of takeaway as to why that is that you and Q are literally always shooting people and like are probably some of the most mechanical players we have in the scene at the moment. Like I think there was in one of the it was like a ship-shape game in Grands, and you had a 1v1 that probably made me like stand up from my chair. But it is like they are very, very, very skilled players. I think you is probably the best backline in the West right now. So it's that was just my stats insight.
Let's see. I have a lot to say about this team. So I'm gonna be okay. I want to start positive because I've want to open this up by saying that this team is very this group. What I said earlier is clearly has been the best in the Western scene for the past almost half a year, right? And I don't know if that's going to slow down anytime soon. But I also don't think that the gap they have over other teams is actually that large. I think how do I say this? I think that one advantage that Gray's teams have had that have been kind of overlooked in my eyes, and I know I'm more picky about weapon compositions than most people and what's optimal and what's not, but with that mindset that I have, I feel like they have been significantly ahead of the curve of all of the other teams for quite some time now, and I think if anything, 10.0 only widened the gap. We've been seeing other teams constantly fumble around or not experiment with the new stuff, whereas PXG was the only team to immediately implement the good new things and implement them properly into a comp that made sense. Running the new Splattershot Pro, or sometimes the new dualies with 2 fighting weapons, has seemed to be the main trend, and that's what they used. The other teams used Splattershot Pro not as the main support, or they paired it with other supports, and it showed because they got ran over very frequently by the lack of fighting power. This was most commonly seen when Milk Duds tried to fight them in Grands. And to give some credit to Milk Duds, right? I think they did all right, and their lineup is obviously not the full Milky Way or full FT win, so there was some compromises that had to happen to allow it to work. But I think that's also the thing when I look at Milky Way. Personally, I think the biggest problem with Milky Way has been their comps. I haven't really seen anything that really builds around the dualies culture as well as I know that they could have done. I haven't really seen, I've seen a lot of double support overlap. I think that their comps tend to have a few too many weaknesses in them for the level they're playing at. I say that's my main criticism of the team, but it also means if they figure out something in which I think, as a little hint, I think the new Splattershot Pro for Ice would solve a lot of those problems right away. I think if they're able to figure that out, they'd improve a lot. FT Win, similar deal. We're not there yet, right? But they just played Freedom Dive today, and they had their roles swapped around a lot. We had Biscuit on frontline, Bursty doing edit, and they were also trying something new, and they also lost early. I think that eventually I can see these teams that normally are going to clash with PXG eventually realizing and figuring out better compositions or getting used to new ideas like FT Wins is, right? FT Wins might actually be a really good comp, but they haven't had experience they're swapping roles around. I think when those adaptations take place, it could be harder, potentially. They might be able to keep up a better fight. So I think the gap will close. But I also think the other problem is that I think that Gray, Jordan, and you together, because I like to look at Pencil as more of an aggressive weapon than a supportive weapon, right? It's not a full frontline, but it's responsible for damage and controlling space a lot of the time. The best Pens all do this very effectively, like we talked about, right? I think what makes their team so overwhelming is that trio is the best set of aggros in the scene right now. I feel like that gives them a big advantage in team fights because not only do they have very mechanically talented players, not only do they have comps that lean more aggressive in the right direction compared to other teams, but they also have the mechanical and individual skills at such a high level that they're able to pull off their own individual fights. That together is very difficult. that means even if other teams figure out their comps or practice their comps more and get, more optimized to the level that I believe PXG is at with their compositions, it's still going to be a tricky fight. But that said, I think that there is clear room where the gap can definitely close before the next big event happens. And we just have to see what teams are able to figure out, because again, 30 new weapons, and we've been stuck playing all modes. And so people haven't figured stuff out. Now SuperJump's done. Now we're playing zones only. Now we have some time with the update. Teams are going to start to get a lot better at it very fast. All right, sorry for the ramble.
To go back to something you said about 2 minutes ago, Jared needs to get off this bloody VDS weapon. I will say it. Like every time I watch him play this weapon, it like kind of does a good job of like poking and harassing, and then doesn't actually do anything, and then he just dies.
I'm gonna challenge you on that. I think VDS is a weapon that's good when it's paired with the right other weapons. It needs some kind of sharking, fast kill time weapon to enable. Something like Try, Mint, Roller, something like that's what it's seen success with. And then most importantly, it needs to not be with another weapon that is very supportive. That's why I think the new Pro might be helpful for them. Pro can work with Dually Squelcher. Pro is more aggressive than the average support. Missiles works well for it. But I don't think something like Squelcher Splash is as good anymore. Maybe pre 10.0 you could get away with it, but now with the crab nerfs, with the new options, I think it ends up that you don't have enough damage to quickly clean fights.
It probably depends on who the Splash is, because if the Splash is a previous anchor player, right, like Iser.Q, yeah, right, that Splash is going to be more supportive in nature. The Splash could fight if it wanted to.
I don't think a Splash will ever fight as well as something like a Pro. I don't think it will ever have that capabilities. It doesn't work with the weapon as well. It can't challenge at mid-range. It like isn't an issue of individual skill. It's just what the weapon does is not what Dually Squelcher needs. And Dually Squelcher is a picky weapon.
Right. It's not even, I think that like it's a good weapon at fighting. I'm saying that if you wanted to make it fight, you could. So I guess that's just my 2 cents there, and maybe we'll agree to disagree. But I would agree that I think the Frozen Pro would probably be better, because then you're setting up crossfires from a longer range, and then maybe you actually have the damage to get something done. But yeah, the VDS, every time I watch it, doesn't cut it for me. I'll say it.
I'd like to see, personally, I think like Bubble Dually could be more interesting for them as well. But a lot of it depends on when Bran is back, what weapon is Bran playing? Because I feel like that's kind of the missing picture here, where that's going to like influence a lot what the other players need to pick. And right now, I don't know what Bran is going to play. Bran is swapped around between a lot of the different aggros. So I could see him being a mid player. I could see him being a bucket. I could see him being an S-Blast. But I don't know yet. That's up to them to figure out. And then we have to go from there, I think.
And I think something big there too is, as you said, they have to figure it out. I personally think that I don't even care that it's the VDS specifically. I just like seeing more variety in the Western scene. Of course, the Eastern scene, has a lot more interesting comps and a lot of solutions people are coming up with. Whereas the Western scene, we do kind of get stuck into these trends where we find out what works and everyone kind of dogpiles it. So at least
and then we find out that it doesn't work.
Exactly. So if we keep picking what's good and what's meta and finding out that it doesn't work, cough the new mini, then I applaud pushing weapons that may not be as accepted in the West, because there could be something there. Now, obviously, right now, is it fully working to its full potential? It seems like the consensus is no, because we have to find, they have to find, the correct options that will fit with their comps and their playstyles to make it work and to enable the VDS to actually do what it wants to do. But there is solutions out there to make it strong, and I hope that they think about it critically. They don't just play, VDS for the sake of playing VDS. They actually, they find what works for them as a comp, and then they actually apply it and push forward. Because, as you said earlier, the gap between, teams like Milky Way versus PXG, that gap could be closed if things are figured out and they're able to catch up. But being able to meet the mechanical skill, the game knowledge, and all the things that PXG have under their belt with all that experience can be kind of tough.
I also want to clarify. Sorry.
I got a real quick joke. Hammy said we because he Freudian slipped there. Just wait till he pulls out his secret weapon for SuperJump 6. Then all of you will be doomed.
I also just want to say the fact that all of these teams are experimenting more and like potentially performing worse with it is also totally fine, by the way. I'm not even saying that's necessarily a bad thing. They put 30 new weapons in the game. You got to figure it out. PXG had no reason to use the new stuff. That's why only their support player had to swap. If you play Blaster, the best Blaster is still S-Blast. If you play Bucket, the best Bucket is still Bucket. And if you play Pen, the best Cooler and the best Anchor is still Pen. There was no need for anyone on PXG other than support, in which Goss, having a bit of a weapon crisis, totally open to find something new and invest into it. And it's very easy to transfer from 52 to Splattershot Pro. They're not that different. It's like they didn't do as much experimentation and got ahead of the curve because it made sense for them. For the other teams, their comps are a lot more complicated to solve. There's a lot more things they have to figure out. And so, more experimentation, more room for error. But long term, hopefully the answers will help them more. Hopefully.
Yeah. Goss was also supposed to quit the game about a month ago, might I remind you. So,
he was supposed to quit the game like every few months or so. That's been like a thing for a bit.
You can never truly leave Splatoon. K-Bot, you're the perfect example of this. Why are you here right now?
I just said that I was retired from hosting events. I never said that I was retired from Splatoon. There's the distinction. Okay. I still haven't TO'd since Low Tide City 2022.
Okay, that's fair. But it is. I do like that people want to stay here, though. I'm glad that, as much as it's funny that people say that they're going to leave and then they don't, but it's nice that the game isn't driving people away. We are still keeping people here consistently. Now we just have to actually bring in new people and get them to stay. That's the important part. So any other notes about, I guess, just in general with the new weapons and how people are playing it in general, before we kind of delve into some of the specifics? K-Bot and Char, I know you want to talk about the teams that you coach, so if there's no other general notes, we can kind of delve into Moonlight and Hypernova specifically and kind of their runs.
Here's the idea that I have, and I'd like to get Char's take on this too. Let's go back to the Rattler biddy. It's been the butt of a couple jokes so far, but let's go ahead and actually talk about it. Because after SuperJump, obviously Gray made that thread on Blue Sky that was like, well, it's still a mini Splatling, so you have to have a mini Splatling player that can play the weapon proficiently. I think in my estimation, the mini with its actual kit, or this kit, the Rattler, sounds like it actually would end up as more of a support weapon than as a aggro weapon, thereby replacing, in essence, the same role that the Frozen would do. So I'm actually curious to hear from Chara, if you paired the mini with S-Blast Slosher and had the S-Blast Slosher do most of the actual fighting, and then the Rattler just paints a bunch and eventually has Zuka now and again that can help support the fight. That to me sounds like it's mediocre. Maybe not the same exact job as the Frozen, right? But if that was a route that somebody wanted to take, they probably could.
I mean, the point of the Pro is just it's going to crossfire and have more impact in fights. One hit of the Pro is going to do more. It can fight more. It's faster. I took a look back at the Area Cup comp that the Mini actually won in, right? I saw it was paired with Mint and Gluga, right? So if we take a look at those weapon pairing, right? First off, I feel like the beacons get way more value with this comp. You're going to have a Gluga that's running basically max QR. Your Gluga is going to run in. And when they jump back in, they have beacons and they can fight on their landings. It's a big thing we've been seeing with bubble comps or beacon comps, is that you want multiple weapons that can roll or dash off of them. At the same time, the comp also had a lot more object shredding capabilities, right? Mint obviously shreds things. Bubble can provide some stability. And then Booyah got buffed to shred stuff better. And Zuka shreds stuff, and you get a lot of them. The playstyle there made a lot more sense for the mini to be picked in. Rather than with roller comps is mainly what we've seen it in from both a bit of Moonlight's own experimentation, but also Aura. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if I necessarily want a Zuka with the roller comps. You do get a lot of it. It is nice, but I'm not sure if that's going to stack very well, especially with Carbon that already has a Zuka. I think it's a little bit better with roller. But even with Moonlight, where we had roller and pro, it felt like, one, the roller didn't have enough help in the front line, and two, we didn't really have anything to hide the roller's approach. That's what the Neo Splash Tri-Strikes are for, or a screen weapon is for, and you don't have any of those. I think that the toolkit that Mini provides, none of this is mentioning the beacons also don't particularly do anything for this comp, because your pen has to play to stay alive and paint more for it, so you don't get out of that either. So it's like, well, does Mini really slot that well with the comp? It paints a lot like a Neo Splash does, but it doesn't do anything else good for it than Neo Splash does. So I don't think Mini is as good as we thought before, but I also don't think it's bad. I just think it's more comp specific than we thought. And we took it and we played it in traditional paint spam comps, traditional paint spam role, and that's not what it wants to be good at.
Yeah, I definitely see that, and that's kind of a lot of the story of just 10.0 is people are bandwagoning on these weapons, saying, okay, this is the new required weapon. But it's, I do kind of want to take a quick peek. I know Broadcast Beat put out like a stats page of the weapon statistics for the event, and I do kind of want to quickly look at the performance of all the weapons, because I was looking at it before the show, and it is kind of interesting to see, again, like the Pro being the second most picked weapon and the new Mini Splatling Rattler being the 7th most picked weapon. So honestly, not as much as I expected to see it, given all of the hype that people really like lending into it. But yeah, it's the Mini Splatling being picked only 28 times across the entire event, versus the more traditional weapons like Sniper are being picked 133. So it seems like not everyone seemed to be fully on the bandwagon. But yeah, I do agree where the Splatling doesn't fully have that like one size fits all approach that we were really expecting.
I agree. That's all I have.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess with that, then we can kind of delve into Hypernova and Moonlight and kind of get some of the specific takes. I know that there was some stuff we wanted to kind of come back to, not derail the conversation too far. So K-Bot,
Char, we're taking this. We're derailing the cliff.
Yeah. I'll sure whichever one of you wants to kind of.
I mean, I feel Hypernova should be first because we're talking about SuperJump still, and then we can transition to the tournament. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you want to hype up your team after Monday night.
Yeah.
I mean, we're on SuperJump 5, it says. So SuperJump 5 is your run.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think so. It goes back to kind of what we were all talking about earlier. 10.0 released 2.5 weeks after, or before SuperJump happened, right? And about the time of 10.0 was about the time that I said that I put out the post that said that I was looking for maybe a team to try to coach. Henlo ended up DMing me like the day after I made that post, was like, hey, you want to run it back? Because I had coached him a little bit on Sonder as well. And I was like, yeah, well, I'd be more than happy to. I just thought you were sick of me. So I got involved with Hypernova. I watched some of their stuff. Actually, I think like one of the first scrims, actually, funnily enough, was like the day after 10.0, which was a scrim versus Moonlight that I was watching. That was one of the first scrims actually that I had watched from this team. And pretty quickly, like that second half the week after 10.0, nothing was really clicking in terms of the new weapons. Like we were trying the Rusty Wiper. We were trying, all different sorts of things. We tried both Crack and Brush and Crack and Shot. Nothing was really working. And then I found out that Dat Kid was going to be on vacation the Sunday through the Tuesday before SuperJump, and that Lexi was going to be on vacation the Tuesday through the Friday before SuperJump. So really, we can't play as a team of 4 for the whole 5 days leading into SuperJump. So my brain immediately goes to, well, we have to get tournament ready this week because we don't get any practice next week. And with nothing else clicking, they were all kind of like, well, this is the comp that gets us the best results. And I said, all right, well, we're going to play that comp. And that comp is what you saw this weekend. It was Wiper, Brush, 96 or 52, depending on the map, and Snipe Rider. The reality, right, is that this is not a good comp. I think this is actually a terrible composition. Do not try to emulate this because this is really bad. But it is also the comp that Hypernova knew how to play the best, because we knew that we had to guide whatever we were doing around Synapse's special. Whether he was playing 52 with the screen that allowed the brush to run around and the wiper to run around to try to get something going, and buy some extra space for the team in general, or whether it was the Kraken, heavier engaged thing where we can run in off the back of that as well. So I think, like, overall, like, I certainly, given by the fact that we hadn't scrimmed at all the week leading in, I was not expecting it to come through, and I had talked with Ferd a lot about that. We had gone back and forth a couple times leading into SuperJump. I figured that, all right, well, like, this tournament is what it is. We'll just try our best. And we squeaked out 4th in an SWS qualification. I do want to say, like, the major upset over Aura, Yoshell DC'd about 2.5 minutes into the ship shape game, where our timer was down to about 27 and their timer was at about 54, with both sides having a pretty significant penalty. So there was still more to play in that game. And in my head, I don't want to go around and be like, we're better than that Aura team, like, whatever. Like, no, right? That I view that match as more of a tie, but obviously one team has to move forward in the bracket. So I don't want to claim that, like, we're significantly better than anybody just because we took that. But I do think, like, because we had a very specific idea of what we came in and what we wanted to do, we were able to have that even ability to find success versus Aura, and even versus Milk does, that pushed to a game 5, because they knew what they wanted to come in and play, or we knew what we wanted to come in and play. And I don't think they had fully developed what the idea was going to be for their pickups leading into the weekend. I'm surprised that Kyo was playing Wiper almost exclusively in the tournament, whereas the week before he was playing Slosher for the weekend tournaments, right, in 4v4 Sundays. And it was the same roster, right? There was virtually no difference. So I think, like, we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted to do with the event. Miraculously, right, like, we ended up clutching up and pulling out on top. And also, when we lost, we were delayed long enough to not get put into the meat grinder of the opposite side of losers bracket. So we squeaked it out, and I think that's kind of most of the story.
Okay, before we go on, can I ask, was it put forward at any point that Synapse might play the new Dapple kit?
No.
Why?
Well, why? Because we're playing Stamp and Whale already half the time.
Yeah, so why would you want another whale?
Oh, I was coping.
Okay,
I put it in the doc maybe, but like,
No,
that
not a
kit is
chance.
not worth it.
We need a better special than that. And again, right, like, the exact reason why I think the comp isn't good, look at the special comp. At best, we get Whale, Stamp, either Screen or Kraken, and Cooler. Now, Chara is going to argue with me all night about the fact that maybe 2 Stamps is marginally better, but, like, really, are we going to split hairs between a Stamp versus a Whale? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't care as much. I think like I think it's better still, but, like, you know, you guys made your decision there, and, like,
yeah, right.
I don't know. It's tough because Synapse is obviously the player who's like, oh, they can definitely play a better special for us at least, but also Kraken is very good with the style of play you guys have, just because the jumps it can give and how it sustains, and 96 wall supplements it. You know, kind of in the same way Wiper supplements Tent by being the mobile option while you have tanking. That's your tanking option while you have mobility. So I feel like it's also awkward to switch Synapse around.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough. I'm not sure what you do there.
Yeah. So, like, with SuperJump down, I think our next steps for us, like, I think Lexi wanted to sign up for, which we'll get into, but Lexi wanted to sign up for Freedom Dive because it looked at the time that it was just like a random +3 team, and it was $150 on the line. And then I think after Hypernova signed up, then suddenly everyone else also decided to sign up. and like Thanos spawned out of the cloud, you know, to sign up for this random Monday night groups into double elim tournament. But now, like starting this week, we're gonna start trying to experiment with, okay, how can we better special composition? Because I think we've probably hit our cap of how far this special comp or this comp in general can take us. Where is the next step is what we're going to try to figure out.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see that because, you know, you kind of mentioned Hypernova's success did come from other teams struggling to figure out how they want to run the new weapons, and that kind of caused them to make more mistakes and not be as solid. But so you have the other teams playing with less optimal comps, and you have, you know, less optimal comps, but like having better weapons versus Hypernova having weapons they can play together, but less optimal. And so I am curious to see what happens when you have both Hypernova on a more established comp using the new weapons and figuring out a better special comp, as I said, versus the other teams once they've also figured out how to use the 10.0 weapons. So I am curious to see how Hypernova performs once everyone's had time to figure out all the 10.0 stuff, because it does seem promising. Again, as much as, you know, there is that, like, well, we can't get too excited because, you know, there was reasons why we had such a good run, but it still shows promise for the future.
Yeah.
So
I also want to be clear that it's going to take us more than like a week to figure out what the next comp is going to be, right? The same way that changing the composition in the week leading up to SuperJump is not a good idea. But now the lucky part for us is we actually have time to figure out what we want. We wanted to play in the zone, but it sounds like we're probably not going to be able to with everyone being on, you know, trip for the holidays and such. But, you know, hopefully like whatever next tournament we enter is going to be our testing grounds more than it's going to be like, this is like, we think we're going to perform. So if you're a new Hypernova fan because of this tournament, first of all, welcome aboard. You didn't join that far after I did. And second of all, be aware that like you're probably not going to see another breakout performance for us for a little while, because we're still going to try to figure things out. Because we need time. We need more than a week. We probably need like at least 2 weeks, if not more. And that's even hoping that the first comp we try works, right? If the first comp we try doesn't work, then it's back to the drawing board and it delays things another couple days. So we'll do our best, right? But just bear in mind that we'll need some time to adjust and adapt.
all right, and yeah, so with that, Hypernova on that slow and steady grind. Again, I love to see teams, just teams in general, just people sticking together as a consistent team with a name, with a coach, and willing to start finding those weapons that are going to work together. So I'm very excited for Hypernova's future. And speaking of established teams that have been around for a while, Moonlight, Chara at the helm as the coach. I'm sure you have a lot to ramble about with Moonlight, not only in SuperJump 5, maybe not as much as in Freedom Dive that also happened just this past Monday.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've been like a lot more open to experimenting with it. My approach to it was more, what is it? I think that we definitely could have been faster with how we narrowed it down, but I was like, okay, if our results drop for a little bit, I'm open to it. I just want us to figure out the new things, because it was pretty clear that at the very like absolute minimum, we needed 2 weapons that applied to us. One, Basil flexing the new 96 for small zones maps, or, you know, like Rainmaker, Cooler, stuff like that. And 2, Nolan is absolutely playing the new Splattershot Pro, because it's Nolan. It's a pro player, so, you know, makes sense. So off the bat, we knew that we needed that. And then also pro is a very important thing for us, because retake specials are also an area we're generally lacking in, right? We don't have a whole lot of them. We are very dependent on things like a 10 shield to make that happen. And we have a bubble to set up that's very important. So for us, it was like, okay, let's figure it out. 4v4 Sundays, we literally just debuted a random roller mini pro comp just to test stuff out. We got our 3-1 over Aura. We lost later to them in the bracket. But we definitely didn't narrow down well enough before SuperJump. And I think it showed. Versus Hypernova, we tend to change our strategy a bit because they're a tough team to counter for like playstyle-wise. I think their mobility, they have a lot of object shred that's tough for us. And we, you know, tried to figure that out on the fly, and it didn't work, and we lost. And we fought Vanguard, and I don't think there was any expectation they were going to play as well as they did. And we also weren't prepared and we lost. And we had a bad SuperJump run. And there's just, not much else to say about that. And then Freedom Dive just showed up like out of nowhere. It's like, I hear about this tournament from, I believe it was from Kyo. And I'm like, oh, this is in 3 hours. Do we want to play this tournament in 3 hours? And answer is yes. I don't even get here until the actual top 16 starts. And it starts off with Hypernova, where again, Shadow's like, oh, let me try Splattershot Pro. He has not played a game of Splattershot Pro in practice. I'm like, yes! Okay, I see the idea, but like, maybe we shouldn't. And they're like, no, it's gonna be fine. Turns out it's not fine. We lost that game. Then we switch on to Pro Splash, and again, it's like double support bad. We didn't learn our lesson, so we got another loss. It's like, okay, can we not do this anymore? Can we just run? And I don't remember if it was me who said it or someone else. I truly don't remember. I'm like, can we just play Mint 10th Pro? Like, we already know this is the best version of the new shit we have. Can we just stick that comp for the rest of this tournament? No more V-Roller, no Carbon, no Vacuum Tent, none. Just pick the normal thing. Outside of Tower, where we inevitably have to do Splash, because 10 on Tower is, like, kind of questionable, right?
Yeah.
But we were like, who cares about that? Because after this, we won't have to play Tower for 2 months anyway. So, like, whatever. It doesn't matter. And we get in our losers bracket. We make a run. I have to find out where's the bracket. There it is. Let's see. We get our run. We beat some, like, relatively normal teams. We get a DC, by the way, in our first losers round. We lost a game in our first losers round match because we disconnected on Humpback randomly. So that was awesome. We almost lost early, but we got the run. We got to Hypernova again. And I think it went better. Obviously, we won 2-0. The second game was just a full 100-0 tower push. But I do think that again, I'll attribute this to Pro, I think, really did help a lot with the comp not being as difficult to deal with. I think easier to find the Sharkers. Pro is able to punish the players a lot more. Pro does very good into very short range options, very mobile options, because its shots travel so fast and it does so much damage. So I think that was helpful. We get that win, we build some momentum, and we go into the FT win set. And the FT win set was one where I was like getting so nervous as a coach, because the last time we played FT Win, I believe we played overall better throughout the set, but we had some really bad chokes. Min-speed zones was probably the main thing, where for like 4 minutes, we're holding zone. We're not panicking about the strikes. We're like playing so well for 4 minutes. They cap, we get nervous on our retake, we feed, we lose the game. And then we picked Brian zones for some reason. I don't know why we picked Brian zones, and of course the double strike does well there. And so I go into this, and then I see Crab Leg lost by 1 point because Shadow dies to a bomb. And then Barnacle Clams, never before seen mistake to lose the game. Nolan swims on top of Shadow while in Kraken. So when we try to jump to Shadow, we hit Nolan's icon as the giant Kraken and jump into the recon in the middle of the stage, and with both footballs. It's like,
with 2 footballs?
No one's never lost a game that way. We invented a new way to lose.
I thought when I was at Riptide, I couldn't super jump because I rebound the D-pad on my controller by accident. I thought that was bad. But
I was like, from now on, I want us to know the D-pad of every single player so that we do not do this ever again. That was after the tournament.
Yeah,
I saw that. I'm like, oh my God. It's going to be another 2-3, and it's going to be for like really dumb stuff. Like, in my head, I'm panicking. But I was like, I was just active as coach. I was like, okay, I know, like, I think the important thing to take, though, as stupid as that way to lose the game was, what I tried to communicate across is, okay, that moment feels shit, but that's not the full reason why we lost. Like, obviously, we shouldn't have done that play, but we took fights in street repeatedly. We gave them offense repeatedly, and that's the only reason they got a score in the first place. Let's put an emphasis on positioning. So every time before the game, I was putting emphasis on like where we're standing, how we push, what angles we need to watch. I was trying to get through as much of it as possible before each game. I forgot what game 4 even was versus FT Win. It was Mako TC. We did good there. And then we had Scorch Rainmaker. And Scorch Rainmaker, we did not give up a single point. Rainmaker's stupid, I know. I don't think it should be in tournaments. Like afterward, Basil vouched for Rainmaker not being in tournaments after we like 100-0'd in a 5-minute game. Okay, so like bias aside, the mode's still dumb, but we played like a perfect Rainmaker game pretty much. We were extremely patient and slow, which is how you play the mode. I'm sorry, it's true. We were stalling in the corner where it was needed. Basil repeatedly killed the Rainmaker bottom right with instant 2-taps. We waited for shields for pushes, and we didn't give in to every team picking a Kraken shot, because I don't think that's very real. I still think Kraken shot is like very overrated on Rainmaker, but we played it well, and we got the win over FT1. I think our first win over FT1 in a very long time, and definitely our first win over that lineup. And all of a sudden, we had a lot of momentum.
I feel like
and
the
then,
Kraken pick is scary right after you just did the clams move as well. Like you're gonna look at that and go, no, don't pick Kraken, don't pick Kraken. We're done with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then we fought Jared's team, Jared, Volti, you, and what is it, Jordan? Yeah. So like half of the gray group we were just talking about, obviously very stacked players. We get our first win, and they adapt with the double Zuka stuff, which again is something we should be more used to now, because FT1 adapted in a similar way last time we lost to them. They picked double strike. Same thing, 2 instant fast use specials that shred our objects. And there were definitely a lot of mistakes that we could have cleaned up, but I think on the overall composition front, if we were comfortable enough to switch 96 sooner, I think we would have done better, because the 96 swap was way better for us. We got a game win, and then obviously we had a very close loss at the end, barely allowing them to score at the end of Umami Clan Blitz. And, you know, we still didn't win the tournament. We won a set off of them, so we got 3 set wins back to back, but at the end of the day, we still took the loss. The other factor of it could have been tower control, which, like, yeah, we got smoked in tower control, but at the end of the day, like, I know our tower control comp is just less optimal. Like, Nolan is playing shooters. He shouldn't also be playing S-Blast. It's too different. Shadow has been focusing tents, not Splash. Very different weapons. And, like, at the end of the day, there was nothing that we could have changed to that wouldn't have been drastic there. It's just kind of unfortunate. And, like, again, I know for the next 2 months, we're not dealing with tower. So, like, you know what? Doesn't matter. Long term, you know, sucks in the moment. Long term, probably doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And
I think, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think one of the nice things about this tournament overall is that, especially as a coach, I feel like this is a gold mine for information.
Oh,
so many game 5s. There's upsets. There's close, like just barely like missing it, as did like a lot of 1-point games even. So there's so much to gain for Moonlight here. The fact getting second place in this is already huge on it by itself. But just the information to then pick up off of and have the players improve even more is huge.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the main lesson to learn, and this was something that we already talked about after SuperJump, like we knew this ahead of time, we just didn't think we'd get to test it in tournament so soon, obviously, I was like, okay, we've sufficiently tested everything. What is our best comp? And like focusing that. And I want to talk a little bit about our Mint Pro Tense comp. Why does that one work, right? I think it works because we don't overlap on too much paint. So when I talk about support and I talk about having too little fighting power, right? I don't want people to think of it as actually set roles. I like to look at weapons more on a sliding scale, right? So like Neo Splash is like a 10 in paints, a 10 in spamming specials, and like a 0 in fighting, right? Something like a Splattershot Pro is still mostly supportive, like it's at least 60% supportive. That's how it's optimally played. It's still not a fighter, but it's much closer to being a fighter, to the point where it's very easy if you pick another weapon that's too supportive, it doesn't work. What we have on our team is we have a lot of weapons that gear to fighting, but they're still able to paint pretty well. Mints can paint pretty well. It can bubble to help with zone cap. It has suction. It gets a decent amount of turf. Pro, as we talked about, leans a little more support. And even Tenebrella puts a good amount of paint on the floor. It still gets Azuka to retake. And so we don't have a true support, but we still have a lot of paint and a lot of fighting power spread out. The only downside is we just have to, come and be aware of who's responsible for painting when, since it's not, it doesn't fall on one person in particular. We have to make that call each time. But because of that, I feel like we have a lot of good fighting power. We have more entries than we do before. The missiles helps out a lot to take pressure off of Shadow. And then we still have stability and stalling with the, mint sharking one shot, the bubble, the Tenebrella shield, all of that. But I think what I didn't understand back then is that we still needed the 96. When the comps got too object shred heavy and got too fight heavy, 96 is what shut a lot of that down. It was able to better sufficiently hold space on larger maps. And Kraken is much better at being able to ignore the shield shredding stuff like Shrikes and Zuka. It can just pop a Kraken and force those players to be less methodical with their specials. And that gives us better opportunities. So my lesson there is that we need both. We need to figure out when we should be picking each one and have a bit of adaptability ready, because having a set comp is good, but having no adaptions does leave you vulnerable, especially after this patch, because there's more counter pick options. So my focus for Moonlight is, okay, what fits into our identity without swapping around too much? So to me, each player should have 2 weapons, and that's it. And we'll try to go with that. Problems I see for the future are, what the hell does Shadow play alongside Tenebrella? What do we pick when we eventually have to play Tower again? Or if we fight a team that counters Tent, that also plays like a Tent? Because everything else he plays is too supportive now with a pro. Or do we just 96 all the time? I don't know. So there's still stuff to figure out. But I think we have a comp that now balances the fighting power, keeps new tools and entries, and most importantly, it still fits our style as a team at the end of the day. Our identity hasn't changed. We just have better options to use it against more counter strats.
I think we're also definitely in a very interesting time for competitive Splatoon, at least in the Western scene right now, where we're still, the top level is leaning heavily towards the zones only format, whereas a lot of TOs are still pushing for the all modes. Because, as you said, like with Shadow, it's like, what does Shadow play in Tower? It's hard to figure out how to focus your energy, because realistically you should focus most of your energy into the zones only, and how do we improve with this, how do we set this up, but still having to keep an eye on other modes and kind of have that ready to go given, like, when the time comes. So it is a curious situation to be in, because to kind of find, is it a 50-50 split between zones and all modes? Is it 60-40, 70-30? How do you kind of put that effort into it?
It should be 90-10 zones only if we want to really be serious here for a minute. It should be 90-10 zones.
With SuperJump done, I think you are not going to get any high-level teams after this week playing an all modes tournament unless you put like $500 on the line or something, and everyone thinks that it's free, right? Beyond this week, teams are going to start playing all modes because the next large thing is SWS. Or sorry,
SWS is zones only,
yeah.
because
And
in the
they're only going to play
Major.
zones only. And Sedoku Major, right? So between now and 2 months from now, good luck getting high-level teams to play anything other than zones. Now, I would love, personally, as someone who, does consider a larger picture, I do think that after the next Sendoku Major, SuperJump 6 should probably go back to being all modes. I think if you're a North American Splatoon player, you are probably going to want to play all modes, and maybe even work in a little bit of turf war too, because who knows what this Nintendo League is going to throw at you, right? They're going to want at least all modes. They are probably not playing zones only in that. So I would bear that in mind. If you're thinking, we don't know what the timeline on that's going to look like at all, but it is something that's on the horizon. That
until I know turf war is going to be essential to moving on, I don't.
No, that was mostly a joke. I don't think turf war is going to be real. Yeah.
I have one thing for those hosting SuperJump again. If you're going to do all modes, can we please at least just take out Rainmaker, for the love of God? Can we please just take it out? Because, here's the thing. All the top teams, they were all like, oh, we don't want to play all these modes. But they played it. And viewers got to watch Rainmaker stalling in a corner, Kraken killing the Rainmaker. And again, as the team who benefited a lot from Rainmaker, did it look fun to watch? Because I watched it, and I don't think so. I was happy to see my team winning, but I don't think it was an enjoyable experience for anyone involved. And
I would probably be down. I'd probably be down for 50% zones, 25 clams, 25 tower.
That's
in
fine.
SuperJump.
That's fine. I will be
SuperJump
fine
6.
with that. And if we do that as well, we can get a much better set of maps. We can put in shorter range zones maps like Urchin to force the pens to swap off. We can fix our tower maps, hopefully get Urchin Underpass in there as well. We can narrow down our clan blitz stages more. Hopefully the map list can improve, and no Rainmaker will already be a big improvement to me. But I think my biggest issue with the all mode stuff, and this is not SuperJump's fault because obviously they didn't know an update would appear. When people are trying to figure out the new update and the new weapons, having to constantly change your comp because of modes, or more than likely run something more standard, run less other interesting weapons because they're just weaker on all modes, slows down the ability to figure out the game. In an era where everyone wants to figure things out, everything had to get put on hold. And again, they didn't know that would happen, obviously, but it's okay, now that everything is zones and you can run more comps and more weapons and more strategies that will work at the highest level of play still, we'll have a much better chance of really seeing what works and what doesn't over the next 2 months. And I'm happy for that. I want to see things develop, because if you guys want to see less pen or other different supports, teams got to actually figure it out. But if it's going to be all modes and we have a bunch of pen players, why risk it?
Yeah.
Why not just stick with what you're comfortable with?
If I was still a TO, I would treat this little stint, the next 2 months, as the little case study on what happens when we try to play zones only. And if it's true that we end up getting more variety, and it's true that things are suddenly more interesting, then great. Maybe there's more merit to continue playing more zones only when the schedule allows for it. But I also know, right, that as a tournament organizer, I probably want to align with whatever's going to give people practice for the large thing that Nintendo is going to put out, right? That's where I'm coming at it from. I don't even think I come at this from the rest of the modes are more interesting. I just think practically you're going to want to play the rest of the modes in competition because you're going to need to be prepared on them at some point.
I can understand that, but I mean, right now we don't even know when it is or what the format is.
Yeah,
So
right.
until we have
I
that,
agree.
it's a giant theoretical. And I think if we figure out the game, and also one thing I point out, if we figure out the game better, figure out our strats and our team identities and stuff, it's easier to take that and then transfer it to all modes. It's harder to do that the other way around.
After all, as I've said one or two other times, the rest of the modes are just zones anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's paint the area around the tower that you have to move back and forth and control that space. Same thing as zones. In Rainmaker, it's now somebody has this thing on their back and you've got to control the space around this player. In Clams, it's control the space underneath the opponent's basket or fend them off from getting into your own basket. It's still area control. So really, when you boil it down, there's a different consistency in terms of how fast certain pushes are, or certain strategies are going to be better than others in certain modes because you need a harder engagement on clams to really open up a push, right? Those sorts of things, sure. But at their core, it's still mostly zones. And so there is still merit for let's figure it out on zones first, and then we can take it elsewhere.
I had a thought and then it went away. Right. So one thing that I've always thought that's interesting is I think one of the main factors that keeps all modes from kind of continually being a thing, one, of course, is Nintendo forcing us to play all 5 modes in their tournaments, but I think it's because of the rotation system. I think that, say, if Splatoon 4 came out and they got rid of the rotations, is you can pick whichever mode you want to play, Splat Zones, Tower Control, Clan Blitz, or Rainmaker, and the rotations was just which maps are on each mode, I think we would probably immediately switch to zones only. Because now that you can pick which mode you play, zones would just become the only mode people play in the game eventually. It would just become where Rainmaker, Tower Controls, Clan Blitz are just side modes to what Splat Zones is. But because the game is formatted with the rotations where you have to play all the modes, that's the expectation as a Splatoon player, is this is what competitive is. It's all of the modes. These are the 4 modes of Splatoon. I don't know if anyone
Maybe.
feels
A
that
lack of
having something
rotation
that-
system would help. I don't know if it would change too much, but I do think it would help.
Yeah. Also, I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think any other competitive game does that. In fact, most other competitive games will just assign you what mode you are playing. You don't even you're not even guaranteed the mode for a specific 2 hours or something. You're just told, oh, this time you're playing control map, and next game maybe you'll play a control map too, but the following is going to be hybrid, and then the one after that's escort. It's just going to be different.
Yeah, but
Well,
those games also typically make adjustments if the modes have problems, such as Overwatch to Overwatch 2, removing 2 checkpoint. And yeah, in this game,
Yeah, well.
we don't fix our modes. We don't adjust them.
and even then too, I think 2 points to that. One, those are games where the top level players aren't saying, hey, can we not play this mode anymore? Can we just get rid of this? I think people in those games play all the modes because they're not fundamentally flawed at the top level. And there's also a lot of games that you can just pick the mode. I pretty much every game outside of Splatoon I play, you just pick what mode you want to play. You don't just queue in and then you just
what other games?
Assigned a game. I mean, I don't play a lot of games like Rocket League. Rocket League I guess is different.
Okay, Rocket League is not an objective shooter.
Yeah, it doesn't count. Yeah. Okay, that's it. I don't play a lot of objective shooters, so that's why fundamentally, in my opinion.
So there you go. There's a problem.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to see hoops in Rocket League or LCS anytime soon, right?
That would be awesome if they just make you play hoops when you sign up for twos.
Oh god.
But yeah, so I guess I can see. I didn't consider that. Yeah, other games do force it as much, but again, in those games, you don't see, Marvel Rivals play. I mean, maybe you do. I don't follow the scenes as often, but Marvel Rivals and Overwatch complaining that we should never play this mode because it is not
I'm pretty sure Overwatch players complain about Clash consistently.
What's Clash?
I don't know. I don't
Clash
think it shows up in the ranked queue. I could be wrong.
About 2CP for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because you brought up Overwatch, do you think for all modes that having a standard zones, then tower, then clams, then
Oh no, Ferd was about to make a point and then we lost them. No!
It was an interesting conversation until he disappeared.
You died for a second.
The voice.
Let's try asking that again. The voice calling.
Do you think having a consistent a order that is zones, then tower, then rainmaker, then clams all the time would be better at all, like they do in Overwatch, or not?
I feel like the problem with that is our sets are too short to the point where we won't guaranteed hit some of these modes. It's kind of tricky to do it because of that.
I mean, they don't
my ideal order, I guess, for a BO5 would be zones into tower or clams into zones into whatever tower or clam wasn't picked into zones again. Even that will not guarantee it, but at least it's game 4. And obviously I think it should be zones preferred.
I don't know.
In Overwatch back in the day, they would have their game 5s on control all the time.
Right.
Because it was the most all else even mode. And do you think doing that, zones being the decider all the time would be good for all modes?
Yes, I think zone should always be either game 1 if it's a counter pick format for your neutral stage, or it should be your ending 1 if it's a set map list every single time. Yes.
Yep.
And I think we are kind of there. A lot of tournaments do seem to kind of start and end on zones, at least for what I've seen and experienced. Obviously, there are too many tournaments to keep track of all of them and too many people with their own rule sets, but it does seem like we're at least on the same page about that of okay, zones is the best mode. So we'll put it in the critical moments in the set, to start off on the right foot and to close it out. But yeah, it's all about those finer details of how exactly we implement other modes, if applicable, into tournaments, or if we just full tilt into zones.
I don't think we'll ever play only zones for over a year. I don't foresee that happening.
I wish.
As much as high level players want that, I don't think that's happening. And I also think that there are good reasons for that not to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I do think like all modes, like regardless of my critiques with it, I feel like formats or things like that should never be like abandoned completely for too long. There should always be a certain amount of time where things are given another shot, even if it's just one event. So like a year of zones only and nothing else ever tried would probably be too much.
Yeah.
I used to be an all modes fan instead of a zones fan. So, you know, I've
And then
adapted
10.0
based on
happened.
what I feel is
And
better
then
for the
the Fire
game.
Nation attacked.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, it changes for what's better than the game. The only thing that I've also realized is, wow, we should have banned Rainmaker back in Splatoon 2 when it had a death laser.
No! Rainmaker did nothing wrong!
Yeah, too many double CJ games, I remember, unfortunately.
Oh, well.
Yeah, and
All right, enough of
ultimately,
this modes talk. I feel like I'm a tournament organizer now.
Yeah.
Next. Can we go next, please?
Yeah, well,
What's
I was just going to end off by just saying that I think it'll be a thing that'll happen over time. There's not going to be any overnight changes. Eventually, again, we just got 30 new weapons. You know, there's a lot of people saying that there's likely going to be, you know, a Sheldon's Picks or another weapon drop. And until we truly are at the point where the game is done being altered, where things are going to keep changing and rapidly evolving. And in the coming months, even years, you know, we'll see how things transition, because there's so many other moving parts. There's all these different teams and players and weapons and metas, and, you know, even with the Western scene and the Eastern scene kind of, you know, coming into a close and starting to interact a bit more. There's a lot going on in the scene right now. So I'm not even worried about whether we make a ruling on all modes versus zones. I think it will come with time. And
it'll just be one of those conversations that everyone always wants to talk about, and I just want to bang my head into the desk.
Well, that's the fun thing. I don't even have an opinion. I'm okay with either, because I'm not a top level player. So ultimately, I'm just watching, and either way, it's entertaining. I care about what the players are doing.
I just watch everyone suffer whenever it happens.
all I'm saying is
I
that
get
it's
to
been
see
old
every
when you
like
see
day
this
or so there'll be a
happen.
new grade tweet being like, "Please go back, please get me off."
So now I kind of want to transition into. I mentioned, you know, the West scene, the East scene, kind of, you know, interacting a bit more. Obviously, the Splat World Series coming up August 2nd, a huge collaboration event between IPL and Area Cup, and some of the teams are getting, you know, brought up on and announced on social media by IPL. We have 2 confirmed teams so far being broadcasted. We have Dragon Rex and Utopia, both coming from Japan. Scary teams that we're at the point where a lot of Western players are recognizing the names of these players, which isn't common. And when you recognize the name of a player, it means that they're probably really good. And so a lot of questions are, you know, coming out from a lot of people just being like, how is the Western scene gonna fare in the Splat World Series? You know, are we gonna you know, put on our big boy pants and really stand up to some of these comps coming out from the Japanese scene?
Let's just say don't get your hopes up. And
I don't know, to be honest.
Good enough. No, Chara, don't fan the flames, because then all of your viewers are going to listen to you, and then they're all going to get disappointed when what happens to the West is exactly the thing that happened to the NSE collegiate teams that played in the CCA Invitational that they did together, because all of the NSE teams lost to all of the CCA teams and didn't get a single team in the top 8.
Let me clarify. I do not think a Western team will win. I'm not making that. I'm not saying we'll win. I do think that some of our teams will beat some of their teams. I do think that.
What?
I think that is perhaps likely.
Here,
that said,
immediate.
Is this a double elim or is it single?
I believe it's double.
Is this like single elim we cast every team, or is it double elim?
No, I believe it's double 16.
Because it's 16 teams.
I could be wrong.
So if it's double, we're definitely not casting everybody. That's going to be so much rewatching to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's double elim.
Series.
Definitely.
Yes, it's double elim.
16 team double.
Gio is in chat. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I think we'll have one team in the top 4 and a few in the top 8. That'd be my prediction.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, what was your prediction for how far a Western team will get. So top 4 is yours. I guess
to be fair, I need to see who else qualifies for this because we only have four teams. So
yeah, it is hard to speculate. Just we have to base it off of the vibe of East versus West. K-Bot, how far do you think any Western team will go?
I think there is a chance that PXG gets top 4. I think it is more likely they get elimed at 5th or 7. I think there is a chance that Milky Way gets top 8, tie for 7, and I think nobody else is going to even come close. Because either in round 1 we will start team killing, and then in round 2 of losers we'll probably end up getting stopped. I think so. For what it's worth, right? The out of the 2 teams that have been announced so far, this Dragon Rex team is probably contender to win the whole thing. This Utopia team, personally, I'm not as familiar with. Maybe that's because I haven't paid close attention in the past 6 months and have only paid attention in 1 month. But this, the Utopia team, if you're talking about teams that Western teams can beat, I think Utopia is one of them. But Dragon Rex, good luck.
I don't even think Dragon Rex is going to be in the top 4.
Good luck.
Sign up. They're good, but there are. I expect a few others would be more difficult if we're seeing recent
perhaps
people get invited. Because I haven't seen any of the Narisho groups, and I think he's been playing with the Inkbrush player a decent bit. I haven't seen any of them place very highly recently, outside of top 8. I know the last thing that Narisho's group played into lost to 4 Dappledoolies, but that was a weird leader comp that was fake. So
that's the FLC test.
To be fair, that one was probably a loss on weapon select. Not very much their fault. But I think Japan, how do I say this? I think Japan has a similar problem of also not figuring out comps very well. And I think they care about it less. That has some benefits. They're a larger scene. They're better individually. But I think it's one area where it is exploitable if our teams know the matchup. That said, our teams famously don't play against Japan ever. And so the matchup experience is either teams like Starburst who played Japan, but 3-4 years ago, or people who don't know. So for our first run, at least it's double a limb. We'll get 1 set. Okay, this is how they play. Next time you fight another JP team, maybe it'll be a little bit ready.
The main thing that I have as my piece of evidence is I'm pretty sure in the past 2 or 3 area cups there has been a high level pickup of Western players that has not gone very far. Gray, Jared, Jordan +1, I think was a team that played in 2 area cups ago, and they got to top 16 and then immediately lost. Basically making it out of groups in SOS, right? And that's basically what they did. Now, area cup,
those
much more stacked than your average SOS, right?
A little bit.
But my point is they played to their seed in that event, basically, and their seed is maybe you have a chance of getting top 8, right? But and that's single elim, and it's best of 3-2 for the first 2 rounds. So obviously it's a lot more volatile, right? But I have not seen a Western. You would think that a Western high level pickup, even if they're playing at 4 a.m, if they have a chance of winning SWS at all, and even clinching top 4 in SWS, you would think that they would have a chance of getting top 4 in an area cup, and they don't have I don't think they have a chance of getting top 4 in an area cup.
I mean, I think the big difference is a lot of the area cup pickups are thrown together night before combinations, not actual teams or people practicing strats for it. That's a big difference, I feel.
Perhaps true.
Teams should play area cup more, I think, as well, by the way.
Yeah, and that was
especially now over the summer when no one has anything to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the summertime. People typically have more free time, and we know when the Splat World Series is coming up, and that's kind of the big question: is are we going to be seeing more Western teams, especially those either already qualified for SWS or are intending to qualify, play in Japanese tournaments and play against Japanese players in preparation for the event? Like, do we think that that's going to be something that we're going to start seeing in, from now till August?
There's a chance. I think it's unlikely that like most of the Japanese teams will give most of the Western teams like any time of the day. I think like, PXG or like, Milky Way or maybe FT win, but probably not. Like they'll probably want to scrim some of those teams if everyone can get on at the same time. But time zones are a pain in the butt, man. As someone who's been organizing for years, let's just say I'm glad that my collegiate program only stays within the state of Wisconsin for the most part and doesn't have to go play against teams from across the world because, those stink, but all good.
Yeah, I can see that being the main issue, just scheduling. Like, as much as the free time in the summer may help, it is still tricky because it's already hard enough to get EU and NA players to play together, and just having that, I think in my time zone I'm an exact 12-hour difference from Japan because I'm an hour ahead of EST, so that could be difficult. And so also another quick question I have just regarding SWS, because so we already have 4 confirmed teams from the West, being PXG, Milky Way, Vanguard, Hypernova. Okay, but I already know you probably don't have high hopes for Hypernova making a run through that bracket.
I mean, we'll try. We're gonna.
It's definitely gonna be harder for y'all.
Yeah, it's the next thing that we're gearing up for, and we will be playing a stronger composition by that point. I don't know what stronger composition, but I know that it will be a stronger composition. So I mean, I think I would be delusional to believe that like we could try to push top 8. I think we'll just be content with whatever hand is dealt to us because odds are we play against like one of the best or one of the highest seed Japanese teams in the first round anyway. So like, where's my white flag? Like just start waving it now. You know what I mean? But I mean, it'll be exciting for sure, right? To watch and to prep for.
Yeah, and honestly, being able to get that opportunity to play against them, I think could be huge for the team. Just being able to throw yourself into the fray and see, what the top of the world is at right now and how you can try to start closing in that gap. And for you, Chara, 2 questions come to mind immediately. Is one, do you so to get into Splat World Series now from the West, you have to come in the top 2 in one of the upcoming 2 qualifiers. Do you think Moonlight has a chance at making it to the SWS? And as a side question, are you planning to bring together a group and compete yourself?
Will Moonlight make it? I'd imagine they did. I'd be very surprised if they didn't. There's definitely still some competition left over, but I feel like for 4 slots, we should be fine. I think FT Win is really the main competition of like a team that hasn't qualified yet. And even then, we don't have to necessarily beat them to make it. So I think we can do it for sure. Besides that, I personally haven't really found a composition or a group I like playing with, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. New Dread has been fun, but still that's been a problem. And I've been more motivated for coaching Moonlight lately, honestly. So especially given the scale of these events, if it's a scale of this large, if it's a major, those are the ones I tend to play with Moonlight. And I try to play stuff that either they're not in or are smaller scale. So we'll definitely be coaching over playing in this case. Plus, they probably need someone with experience playing against Japan, helping them out a bit. So I feel it's especially important this time around that I'm there.
Are you planning to play with Moonlight, like just like as a sub, basically, in case they need the extra player, or are you purely just going to be coaching?
I mean, if someone doesn't wake up, then like, yeah, I'll play so that we don't lose. But like,
and no, that is likely given the time zones.
My weapon.
Well, no, because Char's the one on the West Coast.
Outside of like maybe tower control subbing for Shadow to play Dread instead, there's like no position where me playing would be better than their lineup. So like I don't see a reason to do that. Like,
okay, interesting.
So I don't think I'd ever play.
Yeah, no, get me in there, let me at him.
And even then, by the time like By the time we have to do tower again, I think we'll figure something out for Shadow.
Yeah,
I don't.
I on the flip side, K-Bot, what bribery will it take for you to play?
There is no chance that is happening.
I'll just tell Hemlo to sleep in. You gotta get ready to play with him.
Absolutely not.
It's not how much we have to bribe K-Bot. It's how much we have to bribe Henlo.
Yeah, exactly. You just gotta get one of their players.
No, I would go tell them to go find another +1. There is no universe
at 2 a.m.
where me playing. There is no universe where me playing is. If you're playing at this high of a level with me on your team, it's basically a 3v4. There's actually a scrim that's still highlighted on my Twitch channel when Madness's power went out, and I subbed in a scrim, ironically, versus the team that I would coach next, Sonder, for Seafoam, and we lost every game in that scrim except for one. So you're basically playing a man down if you're playing with me.
I don't know if you know the answer to this question. Are you banned from playing in the SWS qualifiers if you're qualified already?
Yes.
Okay.
I did ask.
Yeah.
We cannot play, which theoretically, right, makes the path for Moonlight easier. And or whoever else, insert other team here. I think the rest of the 4 that should be in, Moonlight should be in, FT Win should be in, probably some like Zenith Yoshell +2, maybe it's Volti. That team should be in, and then probably that last spot is up for grabs. Honestly, there's a chance it could be Free Flow. There's a chance it could be like a not Thunder Goss. I'm so used to saying the two of them together. Like Thunder Wave Dark. Like there's a chance it could be a lot of teams, I think, in the 8th slot. So that'll be exciting for sure. So
yeah, I guess
look forward to that.
Yeah, with no real established team, well, I guess there's Moonlight and FT Win, obviously, but being pickups as the other options will be interesting to see what group of people decide, okay, we're going to be the 4 who are going to take that extra spot in the qualifier, because it's all kind of up in the air as to who is really going to group up together for that. And the unfortunate part is we can't even really speculate how the tournament's going to go, because again, we only seen 2 of the 8 teams from Japan, and now we know 4 of the 8 teams from the West. So there's still so much to figure out in the next, I think, exactly a month. Yeah, it's July 2nd as we're streaming this, and August 2nd is the event. So that's terrifyingly close. So not a lot of time to prepare for that, especially for the player. I don't even feel like I can prepare for that in a month. I'm not even running the event.
Kind of glad that we like waltzed into a top 4 spot, because now I have a month to prepare instead of 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah, that last qualifier is
kind of glad that we're in the place that we are now.
The last qualifier is a week before the event. I cannot imagine qualifying for the Splat World Series 7 days before and realizing, oh, we have to play the 8 best pickups from Japan now. Huh. Cool. I can't imagine that. I could never.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Whoever that's up to you.
Your team. Well, I guess they have a month until the week to prepare, but still, we got a month.
I'm good. I'm chilling. I'm chilling for now.
Okay.
In like 2 weeks, they'll be like, oh crap, that's coming soon.
So I don't think there's much else we can really cover on Splat World Series, because again, it's all speculation at this point. We don't know enough of the teams. So, and we've already been here for a decent while. So I do quickly, before we wrap up, I want to mention some, upcoming events, but I'm not sure there's much to talk about with them, because I know In the Zone is this weekend. In the Zone is always a huge one, but as I believe we've established, Hypernova is not playing in ITZ.
Doesn't look likely.
Yeah, and Moonlight's not playing in ITZ because Moonlight's going to be at Gommel this weekend. So we can't even get any insights on any potential plans there from our 2 coaches. So unless
unfortunate timing for an In the Zone, but
yeah,
oh well.
unlucky.
I don't know, Fern, if you have any insights on In the Zone specifically, and what any teams that have been talking about playing, or any. You're better at digging for information than I am, but because even like there's not really any like teams signed up per se for it, so it's one of those. It's gonna happen when it happens.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be In the Zone, so people are gonna play it regardless. But I'm not sure if it'll be anything overly spectacular, unless everyone decides that now's the time to play and grind.
Yeah, I mean there are literally 3 teams signed up and nobody who's like nobody at higher top level at all. But Sam is gonna win because he's won all the In the Zone 40 so far. So there's my prediction.
Yeah, keep the streak going.
I hope so. It'd be really funny.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing with ITZ at least is that it's inconvenient timing because people are busy right now, but I think it's also good timing because, as we've been talking about, the next 2 months of the top level Splatoon is Splat zones only. So kicking it off with an In the Zone to really get everybody back into shape and say, hey, guess what? The nightmare is over. We're back to zones only. You can wake up now. I think will be good for a lot of the teams who are available to play. Other than that, again, this weekend, Gommel is happening. If anyone watching live is going to Gommel, come say hi to me. I'll be there all weekend. I know that Moonlight is also playing at Gommel, and they're definitely going to be one of the tougher teams there. Not a whole lot of competition at Gommel from what I've been seeing. There are a couple of contenders, I would say. Chara, I think you're playing at Gommel, correct? Are you running a pickup there?
Yeah, I'm with Lux, Mecha, and Cobb. It's pretty thrown together, to be honest, but like we just didn't have a whole. Yeah, I don't know. It's thrown together last second. We've played like 4 times.
What's your prediction here? Do you guys take Moonlight down, or what do you think?
Chara's.
I'm gonna be real. It's like this event is like incredibly
not.
stacked in Moonlight's favor. Like
Yeah.
There is not even a full +1 pickup like in the same event. Our group might be the closest. I haven't fully checked registration. Our group might be the closest to them, but it's very much an uphill battle. We're all very aware of it.
Yeah. And if anything, we just need to build up the Moonlight ego of just like winning LAN after LAN because no one else is playing, and then really just kick them in the butt. Come, like. Like do you know if Moonlight's planning to go to Riptide this year? Any other big lands on the horizon, or is it still kind of being figured
I'd
out?
assume Riptide would be something we try for, but I'm not gonna what's it called? Don't know for sure yet.
I have heard a lot of high level teams are coming out for Riptide, so I think that'll actually be a really fun event.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I hope I can go to Riptide. It's traveling to the States right now is tricky, but I'm still on the fence about whether I go or not. Hopefully I will. If not, I'll be watching every single set from home. But yeah, so I guess before we wrap up, does anyone have any last minute thoughts about anything from today? Anything you've wanted to mention but didn't get the chance to? Any things you realized?
Comp is interesting right now. A lot of new weapons, a lot of new teams, a lot of new strategies, but it's still very early in development. It's going to take time. It's a good time to be invested and see where things go. But, people are going to need time to really get their max potential out, unless if you're PXG, in which you're already on a head start. So keep it going.
I think we mentioned we might come back to it, and we kind of didn't, which is fine. But I think especially true at lower levels of play, mid-level, low level, like SAC, low ink, like whatever. In my opinion, mechanical skill will decide like 90% of matches, or maybe like 80% of matches. 15% of matches are decided by whether or not you can play to your team's identity. And then 5% of matches will be decided on whether or not your team's identity is strong. And by identity, I mean the comp you're playing. Chara was talking a lot about how the weapons fit together, right? And how they were able to support each other's playstyles. So if I was a mid-level team, we talk a lot about comp and like what's good, what's not. Ignore all of that. Play something that you know that your team knows how to play, and you'll be successful. Maybe you'll pull off a run like Hypernova did in your tournament of choice.
And so with that, before we go, I will let everyone know watching, we currently have a poll running right now, voting for the MVP of SuperJump 5. So please, if you have a star player in mind, if you watch those games, if you just want to pick your favorite player and say, no, hey, I think they're the best and I'm going to cope with that till the day I die, please go vote in that poll. We want to hear your voice of who truly carried that event. There were a lot of strong players. And yeah, I guess before we go, I'll give you all a quick chance to plug yourselves. Tell us about any cool stuff you've done recently, any stuff you have upcoming that you want to share with the audience. Fern, we'll start with you first.
Sorry, I was looking at the form. My social stuff.
Yeah, just plug yourself, your socials. If you want to plug any stuff, content you made recently, or stuff you have coming up soon,
Right.
Keep an eye for.
Yes. Remixed Fern at remixedfern.bscout at social. Remixed Fern _Nautilus on YouTube. I have a video hopefully soon about team energy and mental, and then yeah, that's it.
All right, and K-Bot, what about you?
I suppose if you really want to follow me, most of my Splatoon stuff is going to be on Blue Sky going forward, kbot273 at bsky.social. My Twitter, I mostly prioritize general, broader esports and collegiate esports in particular. So if you're interested in that, my Twitter is kbot_273. I will maybe occasionally stream on Twitch, but we'll see how that goes. I kind of doubt it because I have a full-time job and I'm boring now. But other than if there's nothing else that you do in all of that, the one thing that you should go do is go subscribe to Tidally on YouTube. Just put out that Alliance Rogue documentary. Go give that a watch. Really well done. And I'm very excited to see what they end up making next in terms of teams. Go give that video a watch, boost it in the algorithm so that it reaches more Splatoon people, and so that more people get involved and invested in storylines, because that's a really well done product. So go do that.
Yeah,
Also,
I heavily agree with that, Shetta. Yeah, I think it's called The Uncrowned Kings of Splatoon. By Italy. Yeah, I watched that when it came out. I was surprised, and remember earlier in the episode, I can't remember who brought it up, but mentioning the tenure that Gray has. I was gonna say go watch that if you want to see how long Gray has been here and how much that they have gone through.
And if you want to, I don't know if he has the VOD published on Twitch, but Gray did a reaction stream to it yesterday. So if you want to watch that video, you could watch that and then go subscribe to Tidally anyway and like it and boost in the algorithm and all that. Because you should do that, absolutely. But I will say the one good piece of news, I was signed into my own account, which does get some Splatoon stuff, and I had it in my watch history. But I searched IPL Splatoon, just looking for a tourney VOD or something, was going to their channel, and the second video there was that documentary. So it's already doing good in the algorithm. Just need to boost it more. All right, enough of me yapping.
Yeah. Wait, by the way, Tiddly, put your All the Stars, if you're watching this, put your All the Stars montage back on YouTube, because it was the best top level montage in 3 years before Chara. Anyway, now Chara, go.
Yeah, Chara, take it away.
I zoned out for a second. Are we just closing, I guess?
We're closing. Shout out yourself or whatever.
Yeah, I make Splatoon content. Mostly done with talking about the things on the update. So actually have a few guides coming out on practicing. So that might be fun. And weapon rolls, I think something related to that. And a few other smaller topics. So that'll happen. Other than that, I don't have anything major to preview though. So
the really funny thing is that more people watching this episode right now probably know who Chara is than they know who I am. The tables have turned.
Yeah, well, and that's the fun part too. But it's like, yeah, Char, what are your socials? Like, I'm sure if anyone here's never heard of you, yeah. And I guess just to wrap it up, because we are cutting it close to that 2-hour mark. I'm Hammy. I hosted today. I haven't been here in a couple weeks. I don't even work here. They just pull me in because I like to use I make clickbaity faces way too much. But yeah, I'm Hammy. You can find me on socials at hitw.inc on Blue Sky mainly. Everywhere else at Hammy in the Wall. Again, if you're at Gommel, please come say hi to me. I'll have my jersey on with my name on it. I'm very recognizable. I want to chat with so many people. I'm going to be wearing a pair of Crocs. I'm getting everyone to sign them. Come sign my Crocs at Gommel. That's all I can say. Other than that, I do a bunch of other occasional Splatoon content, mostly commentary, and happy to see you guys around in the future. But that being said, again, thank all of you for joining us today on Splat Chat episode 6. Go vote for your MVP of SuperJump 5. Go follow all Beep's, socials and stuff. A lot of cool stuff on the horizons. CKK, thank you for production. Vapor, thank you for keeping everything running smoothly and that our ship doesn't explode. I don't know how to do sign-offs, so thank you all for watching, and we'll see you guys again sometime near in the future. And then we slowly fade out eventually, I'm sure.
Ooh.
And we'll just kind of...
Shout out CKK on production. Oh,
Okay.
There we go. Okay, good.
Well, that's awkward.
Okay.
That's awkward.
Big thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Turn to my fan immediately. What do you mean by screens or on dashboard almost?
Screenshots of the stats.
Oh. Okay, so he's asking like when I play the game to screenshot everything.
I will try
Yeah.
to remember, but no promises.
I'm trying to think when you spectate, you can't see the stats.